the United Nations, in which we present the northern position with regards to recent happenings in the country. We have also similarly addressed similar communication to the ECOWAS, Amnesty International, the French Embassy, European Union, US Embassy, German Embassy, Israeli Embassy, the Chinese Embassy, American Embassy, the British Embassy, and the African Union. Similar communication. Capital, Abuja. The protests # EndSARS. Protests are constitutional rights. Violence in the name of protest is a crime. As a group that represents the legitimate interests of northern Nigeria, we expect our international friends to interrogate these unwarranted cases of people using the privilege of dual citizenship to move to their countries and use their spaces to transmit messages and propaganda that have so far caused the destruction of many lives and property, and further polarized Nigerians along ethnic, religious, and regional lines, sowing deeply a discord that will take ages to undo. We expect that what our friends in the West will not condone upon their country and citizens, they should not condone the same to be perpetrated from their land against other people and countries. We wish to stress the need for the United Nations to caution the global community against the current bias of favoring one Nigerian region or one ethnic group over the North, especially when it is patiently at the receiving end. We call on the United States or on the United Nations to consider the above stated facts and urgently condemn the latest coordinated attack and killing of Northerners and take steps to ensure appropriate redress and reparations for victims. We demand the United Nations to pronounce the EndSARS protests as a violent insurrection against the Nigerian state and to hold all persons, groups, or governments that insist on justifying them responsible by imposing necessary international sanctions on them. The United Nations should urgently proscribe the activities of IPOB all around the world and appropriately label it a terrorist organization. We base this call on the universally accepted definition of terrorism, which includes the targeting of civilians with violence based on the pursuit of political aims, religious or ideological change that is often committed by non-state actors or undercover personnel serving on behalf of their respective governments, or a crime that is mala prohibita, that is crime that is made illegal by legislation, and mala in se, that is crime that is inherently immoral or wrong. We submit, therefore, that IPOB, by its violent utterances and action against Nigeria and other Nigerian tribes in pursuit of political aims and targeting people based on their ethnicity and religion in ways that are clearly prohibited by relevant Nigerian legislations and international laws, adequately qualifies as a terror outfit. We also call on the United Nations to support the Nigerian state's recent application of the constitutional tools and other lawful and internationally practiced methods of quelling violent protests that portend total breakdown of law and order. We call for international intervention to strengthen the effort of the Nigerian government as necessary, because IPOB will likely resume to the diaspora of Europe and America to continue inciting for violence and genocide like it did during the EndSARS protests. We finally call on the United Nations to impress on Nigeria's international partners, particularly the UK, USA, France, Germany, Israel, and Canada, to forbid their territories from being used by a terror group as platforms to incite and instigate war in Nigeria. Similarly, they should monitor and control the activities of IPOB sympathizers currently resident across Europe and the US, who are spewing speeches of hate and xenophobia via the social media and other means. In this regard, the European Union framework on hate speech is clear to the extent that the framework decision on combating racism and xenophobia criminalizes the public incitement to violence or hatred directed against a group of persons or a member of such a group defined by reference to race, color, religion, descent, or national or ethnic origin. Hate speech, as defined in this framework decision, is a criminal offense also when it occurs in the online world. We also call on the UN to declare Kanu and other notorious IPOB leaders wanted by initiating necessary procedures for their arrest and appropriate prosecution in consistency with relevant international criminal laws. It is imperative for our friends and the international community to understand that our bilateral is guided by the principles of sovereignty, promotion of peace, and the standards that guide legitimate interference. Hence, their intervention, exclamations, and actions should not be drawn to discountenance the effort of the Nigerian state to protect citizens from violence and to impose law and order. Let it also be clear that while international law allows for peaceful protest, assembly, and association, it does not legitimize violence and destruction, and no democracy will allow its citizens to be threatened by either internal or external aggression. These are clear provisions in Nigeria as they are under international law. Section 45 of the Nigerian Constitution refers. Both the 1966 ICCPR and other international conventions are clear on the legality of restricting violent assembly and on enforcing the law to protect the right of others, to ensure national security, and to guarantee public safety and public order. Lastly, it is important to call the attention of our friends, particularly in Europe, and the entire international community and organizations to weigh the impact and consequence of these campaigns coming from their backyard. By far, a destabilized Nigeria will certainly threaten the peace and security of the entire sub-Saharan Africa. As the most populous country on the continent, and one that continues to influence peace and stability across the subcontinent, any breakdown of law and order will only compound the security and humanitarian situations in the region, especially in Mali, Libya, etc. This will further worsen the continent, disrupt international cohesion, compound the despondent cases of human trafficking, migration, and other challenges the continent and the world are now